This is a Red FM Vancouver podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe for more great content. For further info, log on to redfm.ca.
ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਟੌਮ ਕਰੋਸਕੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਆਟਵਾ ਤੋਂ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇਨਵੈਸਟੀਗੇਟਿਵ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਰ ਹਨ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਜ਼ਰੀਆ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵੀ ਚੈਰਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ। ਆਟਵਾ ਤੋਂ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਹਰ ਰੋਜ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਹੁਣ ਜਿਉਂ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ, ਕਮੇਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਮੋਰਨੋ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਤਸਲੀਮ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਯੈਸ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਪੈਸੇ ਵਾਪਸ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਟ੍ਰਿਪ 'ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਖਰਚੇ ਸੀ, $41,000 ਦਾ ਚੈੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਲਿਖ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹਾਂ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅਸਤੀਫੇ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਮੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਟੌਮ ਕਰੋਸਕੀ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਐਨਾਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਡਾਇਸੈਕਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। Mr. Korski, good morning.
Good morning, Harjinder.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So what do you make out this V Charity scandal at this stage when the finance minister is involved, prime minister is involved? Now they are dragging the youth minister, Chugger, in it.
Well, it's going to get even more interesting, Harjinder, because the Commons Ethics Committee has ordered a Toronto talent agency that represented the Trudeau family in arranging speaking fees to disclose all records going back 12 years when Mr. Trudeau was first elected a member of Parliament. Why is that significant? Well, when Trudeau was an MP, he collected nearly $300,000 in speaking fees. He was moonlighting as a professional speaker from unnamed sponsors. Where are MPs going with this? They want to see if that was where certain federal contractors attempted to buy influence. Harjinder, it's a big mess.
Wow. So Minister Bill Morneau, I'm interested in what he's going to do now. Do you think it was ethical for him to accept that $41,000 in the first place?
It was dreadful. Mr. Morneau has to resign. What's interesting is that he didn't resign, and he seems to believe that he has options that no one else sees. I don't understand what happy ending Bill Morneau sees here. What's his story, Harjinder? This is his story. I'm a good person, and there's a man in my riding in Toronto, and he's a good person. He hired my daughter. He's a federal contractor. I approved millions in grants for him, and he bought me a trip for $41,000, and I forgot to tell anybody about it. There are MPs who have concluded they followed the finance minister's testimony, who said this is either a man who is capable of just a dangerous rationalizing, or to be blunt, he's just not that bright. There's no happy ending for Mr. Morneau here. No one understands why he hasn't resigned yet.
It reminds me in 2017 when he sold some shares of his company, and about the taxation of the other companies and pensions and the whole fiasco. When he was caught red-handed, then they really shifted that. Then about his French villa in France. Now this. Do you think that returning the money will solve the problem?
It really doesn't, because there are MPs who are asking Morneau to his face, what is it about this that you're not getting? And there's a conclusion, and it's an unhappy conclusion. And the conclusion is that either Morneau doesn't know what he's doing, so that's not a good quality for a finance minister in a pandemic, or Harjinder, he's just the right kind of people. The rules that apply to you and I don't apply to him and his friends in Toronto Centre, because they're just the right kind of people. And they operate on a level that is just simply beyond our understanding. I have to tell you, Harjinder, this man is finished, and no one understands why he doesn't get that.
How about the Prime Minister?
It could get really awkward. The problem of access through the family is a question that is now becoming a target of investigation, Harjinder. There are so many parallel investigations going on now by the Ethics Commissioner, the 3 Commons committees, including Finance and Ethics, the Procurement Ombudsman. You're starting to lose track. None of this is going to lead to a good place. The fees that were paid to have members of the Trudeau family speak by unnamed sponsors, let alone We Charity, are simply staggering. By public disclosure, we know now it's well over $500,000. And what is it can you imagine, and even in the case of Wheat Charity, Harjinder, what charity do you know that would charge a $20,000 payment to a speaker to attend an event? I'm sure you speak at places all the time. When would you ever ask for a $20,000 payment for a 1-hour appearance? A lot of questions.
That's excessive.
It's extraordinary. The fees that were paid were simply extraordinary. And so then you say, well, what are these people buying? When you ask the Prime Minister as an MP, his mother or his brother or his wife to speak at your event, what are you paying for? Are you paying to become their friend? And if you're a contractor, is that really useful to you? That's what influence is. It's a terrible situation.
Mm-hmm. But I was talking to the Conservative leader, Michael Barrett, yesterday. They are, of course, criticizing it fiercely, but the same token, they're not really pushing as hard as they could have done that. Is it because of the lack of the leadership?
I think it's because they're delighted. This is the problem with people like the finance minister. Your enemies hope you stick around as long as possible. It's your friends that you hurt. There will be a motion, for instance, that is pending in the Commons Finance Committee, where the opposition has asked that the committee censure the finance minister. Can you imagine the finance committee censure the minister of finance and ask that he resign? Well, who suffers for that? But every member of the Liberal caucus who says, half of them will say, what has Bill Morneau got that I don't have, that he is in this position, and we have to keep carrying him. We always have to carry Morneau. It's the friends who suffer.
Do you think there's a split in the Liberal Party itself on this issue of Bill Morneau? Are there some MPs there against Prime Minister and corruption?
I think, Harjinder, there is a clear division. You know, anyone who follows politics, there are longtime politicians. I actually like longtime politicians because it's a trade. They're like carpenters or plumbers. They have skills. They've honed them. They understand their business. The old-timers are fed up with Morneau. They never got his appointment in the first place. They all think they could do a better job, and I'm not sure they're wrong at this point. But there's going to be no attempt to force Morneau out. It's just simply they're almost paralyzed by the scandal, by the heat they're getting, by the aura of incompetence, lack of transparency, and denial. They're just in a terrible place.
And now the fear is that Bill Morneau, to save himself, he might throw Bardish Chaggar, the Minister for Youth, under the bus.
Nobody thinks that Minister Chaggar had anything to do with this. She's a very pleasant person. She is not a longtime politician. Nobody believes that Bardish Chaggar was somehow the Napoleon of crime, the mastermind of this scandal. She's a minister who doesn't even have a department. Her job is youth minister, very straightforward, and she was given this. It wasn't her job. She announced it, and no one thinks that she is to blame. I don't think that's going to work. They're not good at the blame game, Harjinder.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, let's say Prime Minister steps down, so they will face another federal election, or the Deputy Prime Minister becomes the Prime Minister, that Chrystia Freeland, that's from the fried pan to the fire. Is it really anybody ready for this ugly next election? Do you think that there can be another election?
I don't see an election this year because a lot of the parties don't have a lot of money. And as you mentioned, the Conservatives don't have a leader, and the Liberals are in some disarray. But you know the irony, Harjinder? This is supposed to be the easy part. Like, spending the money is not the hard part. When you run the debt up to $1.3 trillion, that's not the hard part. The hard part is cutting $1.3 trillion to pay off all the debts. Mm-hmm. That's the incomprehensible part here. I don't want to use terrible language, and I won't, but how they could screw this up with all these distractions and hit the ditch on these unbelievable messes it's just inexplicable. No one gets it.
So what do you think will happen? What's your prediction? Will this sink the Trudeau ship and apology is due again, or what do you think really happened?
I think Morneau's gone. There is a general sense the Prime Minister is not enjoying his job as much as he used to. There's no travel. There's no public rallies. There's really, it's raw administration. You know, everyone's waiting for the shoe to drop on budget cuts or tax increases. They won't have a choice. And I think there may be some good come out of this, though. For instance, we've talked in the past, Conflict of Interest Act, the maximum penalty is a $500 fine. Are you kidding me? The Minister of Finance can sign a check for $41,000 in an afternoon. Mm-hmm. You know, should there be, for instance, some changes to that act to what it used to be many, many years ago? That is, if you're cited for an ethics violation, you have to resign your seat and face a special by-election. You have to face your voters. You let the Canadian people decide. You know, they always say, Harjinder, that the cure for every ill in democracy is more democracy. I think they should do that, and I hope they do.
Tom, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Always a pleasure to speak to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another Red FM podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check out our Red FM Canada YouTube channel. For further info, log on to our Red FM social media platforms or visit redfm.ca.